Welcome to this explainer. So, you know that crushing weight of mental exhaustion so many of us feel on a daily basis? Well, today we're going to unpack how this modern epidemic is actually a deeply, deeply ancient struggle. We often think of burnout as this symptom of our 21st century lives, but the truth is, humanity has been wrestling with this exact same shadow for thousands of years.
Look, if you're waking up tired, going to bed tired, and just feeling totally disconnected from your purpose, I need you to know that you are completely justified in your struggle. It's an incredibly heavy burden to carry. You're running on empty, trying to meet the endless demands of the day and wondering where your energy and your spark went. And it's a profound exhaustion that goes way beyond just needing a good night's sleep. Because here's the thing, left unchecked, all that modern anxiety and severe distress can actually deteriorate into a clinical state called anhedonia. This is a psychological condition that literally strips away our ability to feel joy or experience pleasure. It is basically the absolute rock bottom of untreated depression, where the whole world just kind of goes gray.
Now, it's super easy to blame our smartphones, right? Or digital overload, or toxic hustle culture. But what's really fascinating here is that this visceral experience of apathetic restlessness, it's far older than modern capitalism. It turns out, we're definitely not the first generation to feel paralyzed by this invisible weight.
If we trace the history of this mental exhaustion, we see it evolve around a concept known as Acedia. It actually started out in ancient Greece as Acedia, which literally just meant an inert state lacking care. But by the 4th century, early Christian monks started using it to describe a severe spiritual listlessness. Later on, the theologian Thomas Aquinas defined it as a flight from the divine. And eventually, 20th century authors like Aldous Huxley revived the term to describe the heavy psychological toll of the world wars.
Actually, the 4th century desert father John Cassian famously described this apathetic restlessness as the noonday demon. He watched these monks who just couldn't focus. They were pacing their cells, looking anxiously at the sun, possessed by what he called a foul darkness. Honestly, it's essentially the ancient equivalent of doom scrolling, or staring at the clock during a midday slump. It's that overwhelming urge to just escape the present moment.
Fast forward to the Middle Ages, and Thomas Aquinas realized acedia wasn't just, simple laziness or sloth. He powerfully described it as the sorrow of the world that worketh death. It was seen as this tragic flight from the divine, a withdrawal so deep that it leads to a state where a person doesn't even care that they don't care. It's almost like a complete shutdown of the human spirit.
Bringing this right into our current era, modern author Kathleen Norris points out that this ancient condition is highly visible today. She explains that it leads to a vague unease and hopelessness that's born directly from having way too many choices and lacking true commitment. We become paralyzed by the sheer volume of options and distractions, which kind of makes us feel like slaves from within.
But what is the actual root of all this exhaustion? To really understand the internal mechanics behind this noonday demon, we need to shift our focus east and turn to a legendary crisis of meaning on the ancient battlefield of Kurukshetra.
We're looking at the great warrior Arjuna, a central figure in the Bhagavad Gita who faced a profound collapse right before a massive battle. But get this, he wasn't trembling from physical fatigue. His bow was slipping from his hand, and his mind was racing, totally paralyzed by overwhelming mental attachment and a restless mind. His crisis is practically the ultimate ancient case study in burnout.
In response to Arjuna's total collapse, Lord Krishna brilliantly deconstructs the psychology of suffering. He outlines this very specific cascade of mental exhaustion. It goes like this. First, our mental attachment to outcomes breeds desire. When that desire is inevitably frustrated, it turns into anger. That anger then breeds delusion, and finally, a total confusion of memory and purpose. It is literally a step-by-step recipe for mental burnout.
And here is the absolute ultimate takeaway from all of this. Burnout isn't actually caused by the work itself. Let that sink in for a second. It is caused by our exhausting obsession with the results of our labor. Lord Krishna's advice is to focus entirely on the action itself and release the outcome. You have a right to your labor, sure, but you are not entitled to the fruits of that labor.
Let's contrast true discipline with what we so often mistake for it, which is obsession. A truly disciplined person works incredibly hard but gracefully renounces the fruits of their actions. This creates sustainable high performance and lasting peace. Obsession, on the other hand, means you work hard but you're constantly clinging to the fruits. You're driven by desire, which creates intense mental friction, leaving you prone to severe anxiety and ultimately total exhaustion.
When we fight reality, we suffer enormously. But Lord Krishna offers this massive shift in perspective, stating that the appearance of happiness and distress are just like the passing of winter and summer seasons. By recognizing that our distress is just a passing season, we build tolerance. We stop wasting all our energy fighting the weather, and instead we conserve our energy to endure it patiently.
So how do we prevent this severe exhaustion? Lord Krishna offers the middle path, and it's incredibly practical advice. Eat moderately, regulate your sleep, balance your work appropriately, and engage in healthy recreation. He emphasizes that avoiding extremes, like those massive bursts of effort followed by huge crashes, is absolutely vital. Regulating our basic daily habits isn't just self-care, it's actually a foundational spiritual practice.
We urgently need this ancient wisdom today. In fact, this middle path is so crucial that modern educational theses are actually proposing we use it to help Generation Alpha. Think about the severe modern issues young people are facing right now: climate change anxiety, social justice burnout, endless digital connectivity. Teaching them this balanced, mindful approach is a necessary tool to combat the overwhelming nature of the modern world.
And look, if you ever feel like your mind is harder to control than the wind, I think it is deeply validating to know that even ancient heroes felt this exact same way. Arjuna himself confessed to Krishna that the mind is restless, turbulent, and obstinate. You are absolutely not failing if you find it hard to find peace. It is just the natural state of the untrained human mind.
But here's the good news. You have agency here. The Gita teaches that you are your own friend or your own enemy. You have to elevate yourself. By practicing detached action and bringing real awareness to your daily habits, your mind stops being a constant drain on your energy and transforms into your greatest ally. You train the mind to work for you, not against you.
Which brings us to the ultimate goal we're striving for here. We have to cultivate a vast inner ocean. Why? So that the endless, torrential flood of emails, tasks, expectations, and desires can flow into us without disturbing our core peace. The goal isn't to somehow stop the rivers from flowing in. It's to be so deep and grounded that the incoming waters don't create a storm.
But what happens when you are just completely depleted? When sheer self-effort simply isn't enough to cure that deep spiritual fatigue? Well, the Gita offers one final, radical step: a complete surrender to a higher power. It's the ultimate relief valve, allowing you to release the crushing pressure of trying to control the entire universe all by yourself.
By releasing our absolute grip on external validation and that impossible need to dictate every single outcome, we tap into a source of inner joy that literally never depletes. This is inexhaustible happiness. It doesn't rely on your boss's praise, your bank account, or the shifting circumstances of your life. It's an internal wellspring that is always available to you.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this highly provocative question. Are you continuously chasing the fruits of your labor, or are you actively tending to the roots of your peace? Will you continue letting your attachments and the noonday demon drain you, or are you going to start cultivating your own undisturbed ocean within? The wisdom is ancient, for sure, but the choice is entirely yours.